Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode. We're absolutely thrilled to have back with us Dr. Darrell Beauchamp. Darrell, welcome back.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
Darrell, we're in, I'm going to say, a trilogy of just fabulous shows. You closed one about 4, 5 weeks ago. You're in the middle of one, and you're getting ready to start one. So I thought we might take an inventory of
You
where
know,
the museum is.
they're just stacked up like waves on the ocean, man. I mean, it's just one right after another. We just keep on coming. We just finished Scott Christensen and Quang Ho, Two Perspectives, which, oh my goodness, what a fabulous show that was. And brought in thousands and thousands of people to Kerrville who'd never been to Kerrville, never been to the Hill Country. So we were just thrilled about that. Coming off of that, the concurrent show is called Glann, Poetry in Motion. And Al's a different kind of cat altogether. His work is sculpture, but it's negative space sculpture in that you look at it, that horse's rib cage isn't complete. But your negative space allows it to fill in. And he does such great metal work and bronze and stuff like that. And then we've got rare opportunity for Kevin MacPherson. He's coming up in the end of October for his 60 of his works from his series called Reflections on a Pond, which is just super. So yeah, they're just stacked up, it seems like. And then we've got Jason Skull and Noe Perez coming up at the end of the middle of November. So it's just one right after the other.
Maybe let's start with Scott Christensen and Quang Ho. And I've we've lived in Kerrville now for I think 3.5 years, and so we've been to each show. It's very personal, certainly to the viewer. And so, what might be my favorite, obviously, may not be somebody else's favorite. Your 40th anniversary, I have to put that as at least right up at the top. But I have to say, Scott Christensen and Quang Ho for me was as moving an exhibit as I believe I've seen at the
Well,
museum.
thank you. I appreciate that. And we heard that from a lot of people. They're two of the top landscape artists and artists in the country. And I agree with you. The 40th anniversary show we did last year, I don't know that I'll ever do a better exhibition and curate a better exhibition in my career. Right. I mean, that was a once in a lifetime kind of thing because we had the greats, right? I mean, all of the greats. We curated the top 50 Western artists of all time in that show. I don't know that we'll ever do better than that as far as the quality, but Scott and Quang, they have a certain passion in their followers, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers. And so to have their show at the Museum of Western Art, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for us. And I think we knocked it out of the park. I mean, I just can't imagine doing it any better.
You talk about the passion. I was unfamiliar with both of those artists
Yeah, most
until the
people aren't.
show,
Yeah.
but I saw that passion in their work.
Yeah. Both are just two of the top landscape artists, and they come from such diverse and different backgrounds. Quang's born in Vietnam, refugee of Saigon the day Saigon fell, and was raised as an American success story. Scott, on the other hand, born and raised in Lander, Wyoming, grew up in Jackson Hole, raised his family in Jackson, Wyoming, recently of Idaho. But I mean, he's a Northwestern boy. He's that mountain guy. And there's no way the two of them should even have been in the same room together. And yet they developed a friendship probably 20 some odd years ago that just clicked. And it's a bromance, right? With a lot of us who know Scott and know Quang. We're all brothers. It's what's a unique relationship because they're such incredible human beings. And then on top of that, they're among the best. And both of them will tell you that they believe that most people consider them as artists. I mean, the artists that we had artists come from around the country, literally around the world to see these guys, to see 53 works by Scott, 52 by Quang in one place. It'll never happen again. Right? There's just no physical way to put that kind of work together. Unless you start during COVID, which is what we did, right? We didn't know if we were ever going to get to a chance to have this kind of show again. And things were slower and we could put together a show that just set the world on fire.
The Museum of Western Art is almost annually found to be the top tourist attraction in Kerrville. You encourage and support tourists coming to Kerrville for your various shows. But the Christensen Ho exhibit took that to an entirely new level. Could you talk about not only that, but what does that mean
Uh,
for the museum?
they say put us on the map. You know, a lot of people, when Tim Newton is publisher of Western Art and Architecture magazine, said it was the blockbuster exhibition of the summer in the United States. And he wasn't talking about just Western art. He was talking about art shows across at the Salmagundi Club in New York City. He's talking about MoMA. He's talking about art shows across the country. And this is a man who knows them. He said it was the Blockbuster Show exhibition of the summer. That that made a few people sit up and go, really? Kerrville, Texas? And the first thing they'd ask is, where's Kerrville? We got that time and time again. Hey, we'd love to come to Kerrville. Where's Kerrville? And we're an hour and a half, hour from San Antonio, hour and a half, 2 hours from Austin. And we're centrally located to a lot of things. And people say, my God, we got to fly into San Antonio and then rent a car and all that. Well, if you go into DFW, it's an hour to get to the Neiman Carter in Fort Worth, right? From the big airport. So we showed people how easy it was and how good it was. And once they get here, what's not to love about Kerrville, Texas and the Hill Country? So we had a lot of folks who came in for 3, 4, 5 days a week to see the exhibition, see the show. They showed here and then they stayed for a while and they enjoyed the river, enjoyed the food, and got a chance to see the wine country. And so it meant a lot to the museum to be able to present Kerrville, our town, our home, in a way that I don't think a lot of people would have ever come had they not wanted to come see the exhibition, The Two Perspectives by Scott Christensen and Quang. That was exciting.
Let's move to the current show because when you introduce the show, it is different, but it's different for me in a way that is almost dynamic in the presentation of the art.
Yeah, Al Glann is a metal guy. He's a sculptor, works in metal, bent steel. He started working in bent steel. Hammering steel plates out and heating things up and bending them. And then he put together horses. He's a teacher. He was a fine arts teacher in Tucson and there in Scottsdale and Tucson and various schools. And he would teach his students these techniques. And what it resulted in is you were teaching somebody how to put together metal. Why not put together something that means something? And so he started putting together the shape of the horse, shape of the bobcat, the owl, those kinds of things. And it was a way for him to demonstrate one thing, and he ended up with a whole other thing. And it began to catch on. And he's got monuments all around Arizona, these big bent metal and negative space steel structures and bronze structures. And so he graduated from that to bronze, and now he's got multiple castings of things. But it's just a different look, right? It's the traditional sculptors would come in and say, well, that's a great start it's negative space, right? He doesn't fill it all in. You can see all the way through the sculpture. Most sculpture you see is opaque. It's solid. And his work is not. There's a hint of an arm or a hint of a leg or a hint of, and it's just a different approach altogether.
Well, I found that negative space to actually, for me, it led to the dynamicism. It led to the motion. It led to my mind exploring what was there.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful way of looking at how do you get action and how do you get emotion from a piece of sculpture when it's not all there. The negative space, especially since he works in a lot of primary colors. He works in bright reds and yellows and blues. And it's just a step away from all that tradition enough. And we need that from time to time. We need a step away from the cowboys on a horse looking left, cowboys on a horse looking right. You can only do that so much. But you end up with Al's work. It makes you fill in the gaps and it's fun. And I had a lot of people who said when we first announced the show, they looked at the examples of the works and stuff. And it's one thing to see them in pictures and another to see them in person. They really do take on a three-dimensionality and a fluidity to them. And I really like that. I've had a lot of people say, I didn't think I was going to like this show, but they have, and they've come back to look at it several times. And we've been real pleased with the way it looks.
You have an award-winning podcast called It's Art, Let's Talk About It.
It's art. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
And you've interviewed Al. And I have to say, this is the adjective that came to mind. And it was the only artist. He was just delightful.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. And he's not from an artist background necessarily. He came into this. And so he's one of those people who gets it. He understands that art's fleeting and he's got a rare shot at it. And so he's just enjoying it. He's having fun with it. And he's just got a real dry sense of humor, real matter of factness about him. But he's not full of himself, right? He's one of those guys he's creating major monumental sculptures. And in Phoenix and Scottsdale and Tucson, and intersections are you drive down the road and there's a big Al Glann monumental horse rearing its head, and he's just, oh yeah, let's move on, let's go to the next one. And so it's a lot of fun to when you get the chance to meet with those people. And I talk about it in the podcast. You put a microphone in front of them, and Al never had a problem. He just say, hey, okay, hey, he gets what I get, and that is, it's art. Let's talk about it. It's something we do all day, every day. And some artists can't do it. And Al was one of those that just, "Hey, okay, not a problem." We just, we sat there and had a conversation. And you look up and you go, wow, where did the 45 minutes go? But he's just one of those guys that I think he's going to be the same no matter what kind of fame hits him and who loves his art and who buys it. And that's exciting.
What do you have coming up after Poetry in Motion?
Poetry in Motion closes all here in a couple of weeks. And then after that, we're going to be mid-month in the other gallery. Poetry in Motion's in what we call our Cowboy Artist of America gallery, or CA gallery. But in the Kerrville gallery, is smaller of the two galleries, we're doing what we're calling intimately a pop-up show. We had an opportunity that you just can't turn down. I was visiting with Janice Hines of Hines Fine Art in San Antonio. Was having lunch with her one day, and what's up in your world? What's coming on? She said, hey, I'm going to have Kevin MacPherson to do a little show for me. He's doing a workshop and a couple of presentations for her at her gallery there in Austin, Texas. I mean, in San Antonio, Texas. And that's cool. I'd like to meet Kevin. I've never met him. He's famous for a thing called Reflections on a Pond. Some years back, Kevin did what we all do. He looked out his window and saw the same thing every day. And he has a beautiful little pond in Taos. He has a pond with a mountain in the background and some trees that are changing colors. And he decided, I'm just going to paint this sucker every day for a year from the same position inside my house, like looking out the picture window. And so he started a multi-year project because you can't, there's nobody, unless you schedule it way out in advance, there's no way you're going to be at the same location every day for a solid year. He was traveling, and so he'd miss a couple of days. But over a 4 or 5 year period, he painted every day of the year. Right? He may have missed April 7th in 2021, but he made up for it in 2022, that kind of thing. But he painted 368. I don't know how he came up with 368. Leap year was in there somewhere, so that would give us an extra day. And he came up with 365, call it 8x10s of the same scene, same pond scene. And your first reaction to that could be, how boring is that? It's the same thing. But oh no, he knocked it out of the park. And it was so popular that he put together a book called Reflections on a Pond, which is one of the great art books. It won a bunch of awards a couple of years back. And he produced 365, one for every day of the year, reflections on this pond. And the light that changes, he painted it different lights, different styles, snow in the background, the full sun, cloudy days, geese on the pond, geese not on the pond. I mean, it was amazing. And so he started selling it as you could buy a suite of one from every month, right? You could January through December, or you could buy one from every week. There'd be 52 in that series, or you could buy one for every quarter, every season, fall, spring, summer, fall. You could buy your wife's birthday if it were still available. And like I say, he started out with 365 of these that are still left. So anyway, I was talking to Janice Hine. She's going to have the 60 paintings, but she's only open 2 days a week. And she was going to have him for some private functions there in San Antonio with people. But they were only going to be available to the public for about 3 hours on the Sunday. And I talked to her and said, listen, why don't we talk to Kevin and see if we can get those 60 moved from San Antonio on Sunday after your showing. And we'll open up a show on Wednesday because he's got to leave the next day. We're going to open up a show called Reflections on a Pond, 60 works by Kevin MacPherson. And so an exciting opportunity that came out of nowhere. It's in association with Hines Fine Art in San Antonio. Other works are going to be for sale. Anybody who wants to maybe pick up a birthday present or special day, book's going to be for sale. It's a big, beautiful, expensive tabletop book, $110 or something, but a rare opportunity. And we called Kevin and hey, I like that idea. I like being able, the public seeing more of my works at a museum. And we're just coming off of one of the great landscape shows in Scott Christensen and Quang. And so people are looking, hey, what are they going to do next? And so we're excited. October 30th, we're going to open it on a Wednesday evening, which is unusual for us. And we're going to close it a month later. It's 30 days with Kevin MacPherson. And we're excited about it because Kevin will be here that one night to meet and greet people. And we're going to take stuff out, permanent works out of our Kerrville gallery, put up 60 works by Kevin MacPherson, and let people see something they're not probably ever going to have a chance to see again, because it's getting to the end of his exhibition with that, right? He sold a bunch of these works over the last 10, 12 years. But the Reflections on a Pond.
Hope you get to interview him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be we'll do a podcast with him on It's Art. Let's talk about it.
That's the award-winning.
The award-winning
It's
It's Art.
Let's talk about it.
Andrew's over there laughing at us. Every plug, shameless plugs that we're putting in here for It's Art. Let's talk about
Nothing
it.
wrong with cross promotion.
Yeah. And people are enjoying it. Thousands of people are listening because they want to hear what artists have to say. And what we're finding is a lot of artists are listening to the artist, especially when you're talking to guys like Scott Christensen, Quang and Al Glann. And I mean, it's just a lot of Bill Colwick. We've interviewed James Muir and Todd Connor is a Cowboy Artist of America. We've got a bunch of them. The really great thing about it is there's just lots and lots of artists. And I don't think we'll ever run out of subject matter. And thanks to the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network, you guys, what great promotion. And I mean, we're an incredibly rich community in Kerrville to have an award-winning podcast. I mean, not our little bronze little statue here, but if you look over, there's 3 gold ones sitting on the table over there. To have that in Kerrville, Texas, the Hill Country is just, we're so blessed.
What are you going to close the year out with exhibition-wise?
Noe Perez and Jason Skull is the show that's going to bridge our new year for us. Jason Skull is our in-house resident artist. He works and plays there at the Museum of Western Art in a little studio space that we provide him. And he's going to provide us with 20 works, sculptures works, retrospective, and some current works. And then Noe Perez is coming off a blockbuster run of his book about the King Ranch series of that we're calling this show the South Texas Aesthetic. And it's to look at that hetero way of life, the scrub brush. It's really going to be cool. And those 2 guys we've been friends for 30 plus years, the 3 of us. And you could have a show of Jason Skulls. And I've always wanted to have a Jason Skull show because he's a dear friend of mine. And his work I think he's one of the top sculptors in America. But if you put just Jason Skull in the center of the room, there's nothing on the walls. And if you do Noe Perez, I wanted to do Noe's works. And if you put nothing but flat art on the walls, there's nothing in the center. So we teamed up a sculptor and a painter, and it's called a South Texas Aesthetic. And it's going to be knockout.
When will that show start, Darrell?
Middle of November. I don't have the exact date, but it'll run through the middle of January. We've got shows lined up in January, one right after the other, including our 42nd or 3rd annual Roundup exhibition and sale in April, which is now always in April. Photography show by Rachel Spencer, where she's going to talk about she's going to show works of the major, what we call the big icon wildlife animals. Buffalo, of course, the bison, bighorn sheep, bear, musk, ox, even in Alaska. She's a nature photographer. And her work is just dynamite. A lot of black and white stuff. It's going to be killer. Say they're lined up like waves on the horizon. We just keep, trying to stay ahead of them. Somebody came in the other day and said, "Hey, I've got as an artist that we won't probably ever have a show." She said, "I've got 60 works we could put up in a gallery. We're planning 2028, 2027, and 28 ready." And that's how long it takes if you're going to have blockbuster shows and advertise them correctly and get the market out there.
Darrell, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But
already?
But before we leave, for anyone who does not know where to find the Museum of Western Art, could you tell us where to find you both physically and on the internet?
Yeah, physically, we're at 1550 Bendare Highway here in Kerrville, Texas, out by the River Hill Country Club on the south side of town and across the river. It's real easy. Big brown signs that you just out Bendare Highway. And 1550 Bendare Highway. We've been there for 42 years, the same location. We tell people if you drive up the hill, it's intimidating because it's a beautiful spot located on the hill. But make the drive. Come on in, because once you're inside, you'll see why people love to come back. 1550 Bendare Highway. And of course, on the internet at museumofwesternart.com. Museum of Western Art, just one word, all run together, museumofwesternart.com. And we have a robust website. We include our podcast, and link to the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. We have all of our shows, exhibitions, future books. Our store is out there. I mean, it's a robust website. We're real proud of that. So people can find us, or they can call 830-896-2553. But museumofwesternart.com.
Darrell, thank you, and looking forward to your next podcast.
Yeah, no, it's always fun, and we appreciate the work the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network's doing for the community and for the Hill Country. You guys are great, and it's being seen in the awards that you're getting and the accolades, and we're proud to be a part of it. And like we've talked about before, I went in this kind of hesitantly, thinking that we'd have anything to talk about. My gosh, it's been a great marketing tool for us. So we appreciate everything the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network is doing, and Tom and Andrew and all you guys. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Come see us at the Museum of Western Art.